Tonight, a tribute fit for a queen. Thousands line the streets to pay their respects. 5-hour queues in an outpouring of emotion at Buckingham Palace. Melbourne's embarrassing half-mast blunder as Victoria proclaims a new king. A boss backlash over the public holiday to mourn the Queen. Later, new research reveals menopause's hidden curse. And an MCG bonus for the Magpie Army as fans scramble for a seat at the finals.
Live from Melbourne, 7 News with Peter Mitchell starts now.
Good evening. There has been an extraordinary outpouring of emotion and devotion in the UK as the kingdom pays its respects to the Queen. Thousands lined the streets as the monarch's casket made the 125-kilometre journey from Balmoral to Edinburgh, and mourners are queuing for hours at Buckingham Palace to say goodbye in any way they can.
After lying at rest for 2 days behind castle walls, Queen Elizabeth II leaves her beloved Balmoral for the last time. It was sombre, almost silent. The only sound, the waters of the River Dee below. Ahead, a 6.5-hour drive across the Scottish countryside, the beginning of her long, final journey back to London. The cortege weaved its way through the landscape Her Majesty loved for a lifetime, passing through the rural villages and towns where she considered herself a member of the community. As people formed a guard of honour that stretched on and on. In every way they could, they paid tribute. Rows of tractors in one field, horses in another. Sometimes it seemed a little unusual, but never quite out of place. These green hills, yes, the lands the Queen reigned over by virtue of her birth, the daughter of a king, but Scotland is the ancestral home of the Queen Mother. The link here is real. Elizabeth II was Queen of this country, and she was a countrywoman at heart.
Much loved in this area, and I thought it was fitting that people came out to see her, pass their respects on for her.
In the cities of Aberdeen and Dundee, the crowds were even bigger. Wherever people could gather, they did. A nation's grief apparent as the reality of the last few days sinks in.
It's just very, very sad. But I'm happy I was here to say our goodbyes.
I loved her, I did.
The oak coffin draped in the royal standard of Scotland and adorned with a wreath of flowers picked from the gardens at Balmoral, dahlias, white heather, and the Queen's favourite, sweet peas. Escorting her mother, Princess Anne, the Princess Royal, no stranger to duty, today simply carrying out the duty of a grieving daughter. She will be here every step of the way. In a previously unseen interview recorded 5 years ago, Princess Anne paid tribute to her mother for her commitment to her people.
The ability to have somebody who is kind of epitomises what you think your country stands for has always been a major ambition. And it's a huge advantage if you have somebody who can be recognised as that, not just in your country, but around the world.
And today, the Queen was honoured by the very people she sought to serve. On the final approach to the Scottish capital, the hearse crossed the newest of the 3 bridges that span the Firth of Forth, the Queen's Ferry Crossing, opened by the Queen just 5 years ago. On the other side, her destination for now. For many who maybe didn't want to believe, this is the first visual indication the Queen is no longer with us. A solemn realisation too, there's been a profound change in this country. The applause continued as the cortege made its way through Edinburgh's Old Town and down the Royal Mile. where kings and queens have reigned for centuries.
It's just the end of the Queen's era. It's almost like losing a grandmother. It's just very sad, very, very sad.
I see her as if she's been my guardian for 70 years. Sadly missed.
A very historic moment. Quite speechless, actually. She was a lovely lady. She's been on the throne for a long time. So, yeah, it means a lot. Sorry.
Finally, she arrived at the Palace of Holyrood House, her house, the official royal residence in Edinburgh for more than 500 years. A bow from her two sons, a curtsy from daughter-in-law Sophie. Then, as soldiers from the Royal Regiment of Scotland carried their late Commander-in-Chief to the throne room, a curtsy from her only daughter. For this family, there are painful days ahead. The Queen's long farewell, slow and dignified. In Edinburgh, Scotland, Hugh Whitfield, 7 News.
There are fresh details coming in tonight. First, let's go to Hugh Whitfield in Edinburgh. And Hugh, King Charles is preparing to travel there. Take us through what happens when he arrives.
Peter, the King will join his sister and two brothers in public for the first time. Princess Anne, Prince Andrew and Prince Edward. Together they will escort Her Majesty's coffin from here at the Palace of Holyrood House, walking solemnly behind the hearse up the Royal Mile to St Giles Cathedral. There, the Crown of Scotland will be placed on the coffin ahead of a service of prayer and reflection, giving thanks for the long life lived by Her Majesty. There'll be a vigil led by the Royal Company of Archers, allowing members of the public, likely tens of thousands of Scots, the chance to walk past. It will be a day of enormous poignancy, one of many to come. Peter.
Hugh Whitfield in Edinburgh, thank you. Chris Reason joins us now from London. And Chris, before Edinburgh, the King has an important first at Parliament tonight.
Yeah, good evening to you, Peter. Well, King Charles will make an address to the joint Houses of Parliament here at Westminster in just over an hour's time. MPs and peers will offer their condolences and King Charles will make a response. It'll be his first address to Parliament as the monarch. He'll be in the company of Queen Consort Camilla. It's not his first time he's appeared and addressed Parliament before. He filled in for his late mother back in May at the ceremonial opening of Parliament. But now the transition of power is complete and Charles, this really marks the beginning of his relationship with his Parliament, as he calls it, His Majesty's government. And meanwhile, beyond Parliament, all around London, the tributes continue to grow by the hour. Big all weekend, the crowd at Buckingham Palace getting bigger by the day, praying for the Queen who's passed away and hoping for the King to pass them by. Cheers for Charles as he heads out the gates. They're queuing up to 5 hours just to leave tributes to his late mother. Flowers, cards, candles, stuffed toys, swamping the pathway outside, climbing the fence, blocking driveways. Gardeners have been shifting them by the truckload to neighbouring Green Park, now carpeted with flowers, splashes of colour, contrasting the nation's sorrow. The sign at Westminster Abbey implores people to make Green Park their first choice, and tens of thousands have.
It is absolutely incredible and it's just an honour to be here today.
Coming to pay their respects from all over Britain, the world, so many from Australia.
You will be missed, gone but never forgotten. It's just beautiful.
Angela Crawley says she just can't stop crying.
I've never seen anything like it. I've never seen such an outpouring of love. It feels like love, it doesn't feel like an outpouring of grief.
Gold Coast Gran Beverly Ellis brought her granddaughter Minty.
And it means a lot to everyone, so I just drew a picture of her and her corgi.
Masses of mourners, and it's only going to get bigger. The real focus of commemorations, though, at the moment is, of course, in Scotland. But here in Westminster, they're preparing for the next phase, when the Queen's coffin is brought down here to the capital and the nation's grief enters a new phase. Preparations are well underway. Workers erecting barriers, scaffolding for crowd control and media management. On Wednesday, London time, the late monarch will be borne on a gun carriage from Buckingham Palace to Westminster Hall for her lying in state. That 38-minute procession will be led by King Charles down the Mall, Horse Guards Parade, into Whitehall and Parliament Square. As they did with the Queen Mother 2 decades ago, members of the public can file past the coffin 24 hours a day, from Thursday right through to the morning of Monday's funeral. They'll need to queue for hours, perhaps overnight, with airport-style security. 200,000 came for the Queen Mum, 1 million for Winston Churchill. Monday will beat both.
People will want to come here to the capital. They will want to go to Westminster Hall to show their respect for the Queen, to express their grief, and to be here at a moment of history.
And while crowds mass outside the palace, inside, King Charles has been hard at work. Here, meeting Commonwealth representatives from Australia, Acting High Commissioner Lynette Wood.
I was able to convey personally to their Majesties the condolences of the government and people of Australia.
Ms Wood also having an unexpected, animated chat with the Queen Consort Camilla. They might visit next year in what would be Charles's 17th trip down under.
As you know, the King has a deep and broad relationship with Australia, and His Majesty's warmth for our country was evident in our brief conversation this afternoon. Having visited Australia 16 times, including studying in Victoria, His Majesty knows Australia very well.
The King working through his grief, while the youngest members of the family deal with theirs too. The Princess of Wales's voice cracking as she recounted Prince Louis telling her the Queen is now with great-grandpa. In London, Chris Reason, 7 News.
2,000 world leaders and VIPs have been invited to attend the Queen's funeral. They face a long list of demands, including requests to arrive on commercial flights to avoid a backlog of private jets at Heathrow.
From Westminster Abbey, alarm bells today. News site Politico quoting official advice to funeral guests. No auto queue or makeup facilities, and its spouses only. No other members of the principal guest family, staff or entourage allowed. But the big one, no state cars, no limousines. Rather, there'll be coach transport from a central point as everyone's bussed in instead. If enforced, a security nightmare for the US president, always chauffeured in the bulletproof beast. And with British airspace running tight, no room for helicopters for getting about, no room at Heathrow for private jets. The official advice, catch a commercial flight instead. Politely declined by our own PM, who'll ride a government jet with the neighbours on board as well.
In some cases, very small island nations. In some cases, it will require Australia to go to their countries in order to pick people up.
Among others confirmed, New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern and Emperor Naruhito coming from Japan, though it's a no from President Putin, according to the Kremlin. But the real unknown...
Bye everyone, thank you so much.
Whether the two princes will walk as one as they did for Diana...
and behind her 2 sons.
...and their grandfather last year. As the Abbey prepares for the grand goodbye.
There's a very particular relationship between this building and our Queen. This is the church in which she was married in 1947, and this is, of course, the place of coronation.
Windsor was her home, and it will be the monarch's final resting place. This town, punctuated with history, the backdrop of such an extraordinary life, now preparing to say goodbye.
To our Queen.
At the Prince Harry Hotel, locals know the world will be watching.
We are so protective of the royal family and the Queen. Now that we've got Charles as our king, we will all stand behind him.
Sharing tales about Her Majesty off duty at the local horse shows.
Wandering around with wellies on in a headskirt, just enjoying the day, enjoying the event, without surrounded by security.
The long walk to Windsor Castle full today with a steady march of mourners.
I can remember her coming down the steps of the plane and Churchill going to meet her and bowing to her.
One generation that's only known a queen as monarch, the next that will only know a king. In Windsor, Ashley Mullaney, 7 News.
Victoria has been caught out in an embarrassing flag bungle as we pay our respects to the Queen. Chanel Vella has the details, and Chanel, it's the mix-up that's left the city of Melbourne red-faced.
Well, Melbourne City Council has apologised after they failed to lower the Aboriginal flag to half-mast, claiming they thought they were following protocol. Of course, all of this happened as Victoria moves step by step to proclaim King Charles III as our new head of state. Over the Westgate Bridge and above Parliament House, flags at half-mast out of respect for Her Majesty the Queen. But above Melbourne Town Hall, the Aboriginal flag stayed at full mast, not a political statement, a stuff-up from Melbourne City Council and Kingston Council. It says advice was followed, despite the official line reading, when flying the Australian national flag with other flags, all flags in the set should be flown at half-mast. At Government House, the Premier was met by Governor Linda Dessau. A meeting of the full Executive Council called. Before they emerged to a ballroom filled with dignitaries, former premiers, MPs and commissioners. Then under a ceiling adorned by the Queen's royal cipher, the proclamation to the new king signed and a new oath sworn.
I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles III.
The Governor reflecting on the Queen's 11 visits to Victoria.
An estimated 1 million Victorians lined the streets from Essendon Airport to the city to greet them.
Outside, that affection was deeply felt.
I was very upset at school on Friday when I woke up and heard the news, but, long live the King.
In a process unique to Victoria, all MPs will be re-sworn here in Parliament tomorrow, pledging their allegiance to the new king. They'll then sit long into the night, expressing their condolences for Her Majesty the Queen. For some, the condolences were short and simple.
We've been a great queen.
And in a statement just released by the Premier, the Queen's birthday public holiday will be renamed to the King's birthday. Mitch.
Chanel Vella in the city, thank you. Well, the countdown is underway to 2 AFL finals crunch matches, with fans scrambling to secure a seat at the MCG and the SCG. Blake Johnson has the latest this evening. Blake, tickets are hard to get, but there is a backup option for Pies fans.
And they will need that backup, Pete, because the SCG is officially a sellout. For the other prelim final here at the MCG, they've sold 43,500 tickets. That does not include any member seats. So for Pies fans who can't get to Sydney or can't get tickets, there will be a live site here at the MCG, not out on the ground because rain is forecast, instead up in the Olympic Room. Ticket details to be sent out by Collingwood in the next day or so. But that room holds just 2,000 people, so tickets to the live site here could be just as hot as actual match tickets. The Premiership Cup on tour in Geelong. The Cats are 2 wins from keeping it here, but other preliminary final teams have different plans. Collingwood wants its fans to mob the city of Sydney this weekend.
If you're umming and ahhing, I can't understand that, because if you can get there, get there.
The Ticketek website slowed some fans from getting there. Error messages as AFL and NRL finals tickets plus concert tickets went on sale simultaneously. The SCG match sold out at 3:40 this afternoon.
Our fans have been an integral part of our success this year. The roar from the stands, and you would have heard it in our 2 finals, has been absolutely amazing, and it has a big impact on the players.
Grand final headliner Robbie Williams has revealed he's a Carlton supporter. The music superstar says his set will last 19 minutes and he wants Kylie Minogue to join him.
I need to ask her. Maybe I should do that on this radio station right here, right now. Kylie, please come and sing with me. I'd love it if you did.
The Pies and their president would love to add to this premiership cabinet, but good things in footy don't come easily.
Whoever does end up holding up this premiership cup, they're going to well and truly deserve it in what has been one of the most special seasons.
Just 3 matches left in this special season. Blake Johnson, 7 News.
Tim Watson joins us now with a look ahead to sport. And Tim, the Magpies are getting creative.
They are, Mitch. The paint has only just dried. We'll reveal all shortly. Also, Jeremy Cameron on light duties and reveals why he stayed away from his Cats teammates. Max Gawn speaks out on the possibility of losing Luke Jackson. A wet and wild start to the new NFL season, and a long-standing Leighton Hewitt record is gone. Mitch, details soon.
OK, Tim, we'll see you then. Thank you. A little boy has been injured when a car ploughed into his northern suburbs home. We'll have the details next. Also coming up, the big banks moving on interest rates. A promising singer's miraculous survival in a tragic case of mistaken identity.
And we're heading into a few dry days that slowly warm up. I'll have the full weather details later in 7 News.
Westpac has now joined the other big banks in passing on the Reserve Bank's official rate hike in full. The interest rate on variable home loans will go up by 0.5% on September the 20th. The rate on Westpac life deposit accounts will increase by the same amount. The other big banks moved on Friday. The heartbroken parents of a rising Melbourne music star have opened up on the impact of a tragic case of mistaken identity. Their son fought back after he was shot in the head, but they say he'll never be the same.
Shot in the head by a man he'd never met. Kevin Passanis's parents say the 28-year-old will never be the same.
The person who is Kevin at the moment is not my son. He's a different person. It's very sad.
The talented musician was shot as he sat in his parked car in Narre Warren in 2020. It was a tragic case of mistaken identity. The gunman thought Passanis was another man he suspected was having an affair with his girlfriend. Philip Constantinou was today sentenced to 18 years behind bars for attempted murder and other offences.
This man did not know you, but you simply cursed him and then fired. The injuries he has suffered as a result of your actions have imposed a terrible price on his life.
Kevin Passanis now requires round-the-clock care and suffers from frequent seizures. His attacker won't be eligible for parole until 2037.
It will give this human enough time to think and probably regret how he ruined my son and her son's life.
Estelle Greepink, 7 News.
And an inquest into the disappearance of accused conwoman Melissa Caddick has been told an autopsy couldn't determine how her foot became separated from her body. It washed up on a beach 3 months after she was reported missing, and federal police raided her home in 2020. She's suspected of stealing tens of millions of dollars from investors dating back to 2012. A little boy has been injured after an out-of-control car ploughed into his family's Glenroy home. The 3-year-old was playing with toys when the vehicle crashed through his bedroom window.
The Honda slammed into the front of the weatherboard house just after 10 this morning.
It was just a big commotion.
In this bedroom, a 3-year-old boy with his mum, both thrown across the room as windows and mirrors smashed. She was uninjured. The boy ended up in a wardrobe with a bruised leg. Later, shown a fire truck by Dad on what was a very lucky day. A 63-year-old woman was behind the wheel. She was also uninjured.
Very much a relief. Yeah, thank goodness nobody was hurt.
The house was badly damaged, but the family says they won't need to move out. The driver was reversing out of a driveway over the road. A relative there told me she panicked when an oncoming car tooted her. Then she mistook the accelerator for the brake. Her swerve marks visible on the nature strip and road. The Honda was driven back to its driveway after the crash. Police say alcohol was not a factor. They are yet to decide if they will charge the driver. Paul Dowsley, 7 News.
Victoria's public holiday for the Queen is running into trouble with bosses lining up to oppose it. What it means is next on 7 News. Also, the discovery that took police by surprise after a 125-kilometre pursuit from Melton to the Monash. And Russian soldiers retreat as Ukraine strikes back. A wild police chase across Melbourne has come to a bizarre end that's left officers stunned. The driver and his female partner were caught in a compromising position after a 3-hour pursuit.
A police chase at a snail's pace. What's left of the wheel rims scraping along Heatherton Road. As police discover the driver, Matthew Jeffrey, and his female passenger were having sexual intercourse at the time their vehicle was finally pulled over. The 3-hour police chase started when the 27-year-old was detected doing 180 kilometres per hour in an 80 zone in Melton.
Go get him, boys. Oh, off he goes.
2 tyres were taken out when police placed stop sticks at the Coburns Road intersection, but it didn't stop the driver. He continued through the streets onto the Western Highway, travelling under 60 kilometres an hour. Over the Westgate Freeway, then dashcam detected the duo on the Monash. Turning around at Heatherton Road in Dandenong, officers deployed more stop sticks in the Domain Tunnel. The bizarre chase finally ending in South Melbourne, where the driver was taken into custody. The 27-year-old driver is known to police. He's since been charged with a string of offences, including dangerous driving and possessing a weapon. He's been remanded to reappear in court later this month. Cassie Zervos, 7 News.
The United States has paused to remember victims of the September 11th terror attacks, marking 21 years since hijacked passenger planes crashed into New York's Twin Towers and the Pentagon. The US President quoted a message Queen Elizabeth sent the American people soon after the tragedy.
Grief is the price we pay for love.
Family members read out the names of the victims. And Ukrainian soldiers on board the Bushmasters that played a key part in Kyiv's latest offensive have thanked Australia for the vehicles.
Australia, thank you.
Troops in the east of the country have recaptured more than 3,000 square kilometres of territory. A rapid offensive has pushed Russian forces back to within 50 kilometres of the border. There's a backlash from businesses and some medical experts over next week's National Day of Mourning to mark the Queen's death. It means 2 public holidays in a row here in Victoria and more tough times for traders.
The National Day of Mourning is leaving businesses with a difficult decision.
Either having to pay staff public holiday rates, we're already kind of suffering still from the last 2 years, or having to pay them to be closed and stay home.
The Queen's memorial date, Thursday, September 22, the day after our Prime Minister returns from the UK and the day before Victoria's grand final public holiday.
This is a historic event that is touching many Australians.
Having a public holiday for the loss of the Queen is understandable, but having what we consider to be an unnecessary public holiday every grand final is a bit much.
Many businesses will be working at a loss all weekend.
We're talking thousands of dollars.
We will lose a bit of money because some people won't be able to make it on other days.
The 4-day long weekend now will add another public holiday, which will significantly increase the wages now for the business and have a big impact on the costs going forward.
The Australian Medical Association fears our already struggling healthcare system will also take another hit, with hundreds of operations expected to be cancelled in the coming days.
Patients in the outpatient environment, patients for reviews, important therapies that they might receive, infusions or surgeries. These are planned surgeries for people with disability and pain that will now go on for weeks or months longer.
Sarah Jones, 7 News.
Victorian women are being urged to get more active this week. This Girl Can Week is all about removing the main barrier to exercise for women and girls who fear being judged.
It's all about having fun. We've got lots of no cost or very low cost activities around the state.
1 in 5 women don't do any exercise, and Vic Health says it's essential for mental as well as physical fitness. Shock new Melbourne research is now linking menopause with dementia. Next, the expert advice for women. Also, what's driving petrol to its lowest price this year? A split-second decision leaves a tradie fighting for life in Melbourne's southeast. And later in sport, baby joy for a footy star after a family struggle. A tradie has been critically injured in a high-speed collision on the Mornington Peninsula Freeway. The victim was fixing his load in the emergency lane when he was hit by a Toyota Yaris.
Early indications are that speed may well have been a contributing factor. A number of witnesses have identified that the Toyota Yaris may well have been driving erratically for a period of time prior to the collision.
The driver of the Toyota was taken to hospital under police guard. The road was closed, causing traffic mayhem. Jason Roberts has walked free from court despite being sentenced for a string of violent armed robberies. The verdict comes just months after he was acquitted of the Silk Miller police murders that's now left the door open for a multi-million-dollar compensation claim.
Jailed for a crime the court found he didn't commit, Jason Roberts walked free after admitting to 10 others. Jason, what do you make of the outcome?
Victoria Police.
Exceptional circumstances in a remarkable case. Roberts had pleaded guilty to 10 counts of armed robbery dating back to the 90s. He was sentenced to a maximum of 6 years and 6 months jail. But Roberts spent 22 years in custody over the murders of Sergeant Gary Silk and Senior Constable Rodney Miller before his convictions were quashed in July. The judge freeing Roberts because of time already served. The court heard Roberts' mental health has suffered after his time in prison and he's struggling to adapt to life on the outside, adding weight to a possible claim for compensation.
But you're expecting it's not going to be cheap. I mean, the state of Victoria is going to be up for a claim potentially in the millions of dollars, potentially.
Is it a priority for you to try to get some sort of compensation? He and co-offender Bandali Debs held up 10 retailers and restaurants at gunpoint. Victims were left traumatised after guns were pointed at them. The robberies took place in the 5 months prior to the Silk Miller shootings. The judge said that Roberts is a different individual to the 17-year-old violent armed robber. It was also pointed out that the trauma suffered by his victims is ongoing. Roberts pleaded guilty and showed remorse. The judge also remarked that Roberts' prospects of not re-offending are good. Cameron Bowe, 7 News.
The share market has started the week strongly, led by miners and retailers. Here's Network Finance Editor Gemma Acton.
Thanks, Peter. A buoyant start to the week for the ASX 200. It's added 70 points to close at 6,965. Once again, miners are top of the leaderboard alongside some major retailers. The Aussie dollar bounced off its lows over the weekend. It's now buying 68.6 US cents, while iron ore prices have picked up as we head into peak construction season in China. After the first 2 months of this financial year, balanced super funds are up just shy of 2.5%. Thanks to the share market rebound, riskier growth funds have done a little better, while the most conservative capital stable option is up 1.3%. Peter.
Gemma Acton reporting. There's relief at last for Melbourne drivers, with petrol plummeting to its lowest price of the year. Sonia Marinelli has the details, and Sonia, the price relief won't last long though.
Yes, Mitch, there's a 30-cent difference between the highest and the lowest prices right now, and that is usually a sign that the price cycle is changing. Unleaded petrol can be found for as cheap as $1.47 in some parts of Melbourne. The average is $1.55. The last time it was that low was November last year, and right now it's more than 80 cents a litre less than its peak. But diesel prices, well, they're still high, currently averaging more than $2. Mitch, we are expecting petrol prices to rise by 25 cents a litre when the full fuel excise is reinstated in a fortnight.
Sonia Marinelli at Pascoe Vale, thank you. Sport is next with Tim Watson, and Tim, one of the game's biggest stars, is raring to go for Friday night.
Here's Mitch, but he's been kept away from his teammates over the last few days. We'll explain why next. Also, how the Magpies plan on tackling the shorter SCG, with a big watch on Jordan De Goey. Hear from Max Gawn as the Demons prepare for a changing of the guard. The new tennis teen sensation crowned the world's best, And the Bears slide headfirst into the new NFL season. Welcome back. Geelong's biggest star didn't do much today, but Jeremy Cameron says he'll be fit and firing come Friday night. The Cats confident of overturning a preliminary final hoodoo against the Lions.
Geelong's star forward was restricted to light training duties, but Jeremy Cameron says he will line up against the Lions.
I'm feeling fresh. Had a bit of a trot yesterday and I'm excited, so it's a good time of year to be playing footy.
The Coleman medalist missed Friday's main session, but his absence unrelated to a recent hamstring injury, this time a stomach bug.
Spent most of the day on the couch, but I feel really good now, so I'm glad it sort of happened this week and not next week.
Tom Hawkins also had a light run, taking part in handball drills with Jake Kolodjasny, who will face a fitness test on his knee later this week. The defender, the Cats' only main injury concern, ahead of their 12th preliminary final in 16 years.
We got ourselves in a great position, prelim final. We're where we want to be, looking forward to this week, and I think we're in a really good spot to win it this year for sure.
In more good news for the Cats, Captain Joel Selwood and partner Britt announced they're expecting their first child after a long struggle with fertility.
Yeah, it's awesome news, isn't it, to see them so happy like that. You know, they're both great people.
Jacob Hopper won't be joining the Cats family, nominating Richmond as his club of choice, despite the best effort of his former Giants teammate.
I spoke to Jacob for sure. You know, we had a good relationship up at the Giants. Wherever he ends up, I think it's going to be the Tigers now. Good on him. You know, he's a really exciting play.
While Geelong missed out on Hopper, another Giant is keen to join the category. Reports Tanner Bruin has picked Geelong ahead of North Melbourne and Hawthorn as his club of choice. The 20-year-old played for the Geelong Falcons before being drafted to GWS. The club also remain in the hunt for Collingwood forward Ollie Henry, the brother of Cats defender Jack. Tim?
Thanks, Nat. Collingwood is going to great lengths to prepare for the clash with the Swans on Saturday. Chief football reporter Tom Brown is at the Magpies headquarters. And Tom, the Painters have been busy there today.
See, what the Pies are doing is going to school on their round 22 loss at the SCG to the Swans. Now remember that day De Goey didn't play. They had the flu sweep through the club during the week. But what the Pies have done is replicate the exact dimensions of the SCG in the line markings here at Collingwood HQ, as you can see this afternoon. They finished training late today. It was a light session. Jordan De Goey didn't do much, although I'm told his shoulder's better than this time last week. Darcy Moore away from the club today. There's no significant concerns, but he's nursing still these flu-like symptoms. Across at Melbourne, the review has started into what's a disappointing season in the end. Senior Demons dropped in for exit interviews. The post-mortem officially underway.
We just weren't able to score goals and we leaked goals down the other end, so that doesn't stand up in finals.
Multiple sources indicate Luke Jackson will inform Melbourne he wants a trade this week. It's technically not official yet. Jackson's scheduled to meet with Simon Goodwin in coming days.
Look, I'm still hopeful and there's still a chance we can be a ruck combo for the next few years, but that's the way the footy is at the moment of free agency and the world we live in, and I wouldn't hold any grudges.
The Demons' second half fade-outs, one area of investigation.
We were so strong in first halves, but rarely went in with a lead bigger than 20 points. So if you keep teams in it, momentum swings.
Their record post the Stephen May and Jake Melcham restaurant fight has created plenty of debate. Just 6 wins and 8 losses after the mid-season bye.
The sacrifice and the team spirit and all that's still there. We just weren't able to capitalise on momentum at the right times.
And North Melbourne are finalising a panel to look for its new CEO. Dockers football boss Peter Bell linked to the role. Bell won 2 flags as a player at the Kangaroos. And Tim, I've got fresh details on the minute silence situation, the AFLW on Friday night. The Bulldogs did the minute silence for the Queen, but post-match did say it was insensitive. Pre-game, there was a suggestion from a small number of players to take a knee to support the Black Lives Matter movement. It didn't happen in the end. The Dogs arranged for a prominent director to talk to mark the Indigenous round. Tim?
Thanks, Tom. Men's tennis has a new world number 1 after Spanish whiz kid Carlos Alcaraz defeated world number 1, dethroning Leighton Hewitt, who was 20 when he held the honour. Daniel Ricciardo was in the centre of a controversial finish to the Italian Grand Prix. The Aussie was on track to finish 8th, but an oil leak forced him to pull over as Max Verstappen took the checkered flag under the safety car. The Red Bull driver can wrap up the World Championship in Singapore later this month. Meanwhile, Aussie Will Power has claimed his second IndyCar championship after finishing third in the race in California. Legendary quarterback Tom Brady ran out for his 23rd season in the NFL and showed he's still got it.
Shot downfield for Julio Jones at the 30, holds it in.
The 45-year-old helped his Tampa Bay Buccaneers to a season-opening win over the Cowboys 19-3. While nothing would get in the way of Chicago's impressive win over the 49ers, the Bears celebrating in style after a heavy downpour flooded the stadium. I believe Jane predicted that rainfall over there as well, Pete. And what about Tom Brady? 45 years of age, still going strong.
45?
And Alcaraz has been dreaming of being the world number one since he was a kid. Well, he's only 18 now.
And his English is only going to get better from now on, that's for sure.
And his tennis probably a little bit better too.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Tim. New research is exposing a link between menopause and the increased risk of developing dementia. Melbourne scientists are now hoping the biggest study of its kind will help find treatments.
Dementia is already the leading cause of death in women, but according to a new study of more than 36,000 subjects, menopause can increase the risk of developing the debilitating disease.
They had really detailed scans using magnetic resonance imaging. What that does is it allows us to get really subtle and nuanced pictures of what someone's brain health is like. Older women, when compared to older men, had less healthy brains, even though men had a higher risk of having heart attacks and strokes.
It's one of the largest studies in the world. Researchers say it's a major breakthrough as they race to develop a treatment for the growing disease.
If we can mimic what the hormonal state was before the menopause, there's every chance that we can reduce this risk.
More than 487,000 Australians are living with dementia, and without a medical breakthrough, that's expected to increase to over 1 million by 2058.
Dementia eventually robs us not just of our memory, but also our ability to do our daily tasks. Every one of these discoveries potentially leads us to a new therapeutic approach.
There are some lifestyle changes women can implement now to reduce the risk, including increasing physical activity, cutting out smoking, eating a balanced diet, reducing alcohol consumption, doing cognitive training, and increasing social activities. Rochelle Brown, 7 News.
Jane Bunn is next with the forecast. And Jane, how is it looking tomorrow?
Well, Mitch, we are mostly dry, but it's still quite chilly thanks to lingering cloud. But then it warms up. I'll have those details next.
Tonight on a special edition of The Latest, we're live to Edinburgh. Scots turning out for a procession of Queen Elizabeth's coffin. King Charles moments away from addressing Westminster before flying to Scotland for a church service. When it happens, it'll be on The Latest at 10:20.
Know the headlines as they break. Know the stories as they happen. With 7news.com.au, know the news now.
Hello again. Showers clear up tomorrow morning, but the colder temperatures will be lasting for one more day. If you're looking for warmer weather, we'll see that again midweek. Today only reached a top of 13.6. That is several degrees below average. But it's that time of year where the sun starts to have a bit more strength. So if you're out of the wind and in that sun, there is a hint of warmth, no matter how cold the temperature is. Those sunny breaks were between chilly showers. They were over the southeastern suburbs this morning, then they spread right on through during the afternoon. Most recorded less than 1 millimetre. They don't add up to much. But if you're in the wind and it's raining, it's certainly not warm out there. Showers spent the morning near the coast and over the northeast of the state, then they spread through more of Victoria. The Alps are seeing a fresh dusting of snow, and there's a lot more to come late in the week. Otherwise, most of the wet weather should dissipate overnight, and that's going to lead to a chilly one. We're in the chilly air behind a cold front. Tasmania felt that the hardest with with low-level snow. A trough that is up in the north here isn't producing much rain, not like last week. But the next major weather system is starting to cross the west tomorrow. A version of that arrives here once the high moves through. The high clears our wet weather and makes our daytime temperatures thaw out, but there's frosty nights in between. The next wet weather is from Wednesday into Thursday. It comes down from the northwest, so it's mainly a northern Victorian system once again. There is more to follow. We may see surge after surge after surge on Friday and across the weekend. Now, this wet weather here is mainly for the south and east of the state, and it certainly does include Melbourne when that's overhead. I'm expecting 50 to 80 centimetres of snow up in the Alps. Around the nation tomorrow, lots of showers in Sydney, Adelaide jumping up to 20, mostly sunny as the high moves through. There's full sunshine in Brisbane, 25, but the next weather system brings showers and the risk of thunderstorms to Perth. To Victoria, it's a chilly start. Frost is a risk through all these parts of the inland, along with fog too. Only the odd shower near the coast, mainly in Gippsland. The rest look dry. It is sunny in the northeast corner, a cloudy afternoon in the west. The high is coming in, so our winds are light. Closer in, there's only the odd shower left over by the morning, and they are mainly through the eastern suburbs. Otherwise, it is dry, but there's a fair bit of cloud out there. Light winds, but feeling pretty cool. The city begins on 6 ahead of a top of 14. It's just a brief morning shower, otherwise mostly cloudy, only occasional sunny breaks. Now that cloud clears up at night. So it is a frosty start to the day on Wednesday, 4 in the city, near freezing in the suburbs. But that'll thaw out quickly during the morning. There is bright sunshine heading for a top of 19. As we go into Wednesday afternoon, some high cloud starts to come over, and then there's patchy light rain overnight that clears on Thursday morning. Now on Thursday afternoon, there'll be bright sunshine. Expect that, heading back up to 18. Then lots of showers as we go Friday right through to Monday, then mainly in the afternoon and evening. So yes, we could be seeing some on Friday night. But for tomorrow, it's a top of 14. There's only the odd shower left over in the morning, so we've got a mostly cloudy day. But Wednesday, that looks a bit nicer, Mitch.
And good to see a 21 on the horizon.
Indeed, once we warm up then.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jane. Now here's what's on Sunrise tomorrow.
Thanks, Mitch. As events unfold here in the UK overnight, you'll know first on Sunrise.
Wake up to every breaking development on the ground and around the world.
Remembering the Queen and the heralding in of a new era as thousands converge on Buckingham Palace.
See you in the morning, Melbourne.
And that's the way it is this Monday, the 12th of September. Thanks for your company. For now, from the 7 News team, good night.